It's always more fun to share with everyone. It's always more fun.
Hey, welcome to Java Joel and Jesus. It's been a long time. We haven't had one of these since before Christmas, but it's, hey, the Christmas break is over. Everybody's back in school, and it's time to get moving again. And so we're going to be filming them again every week. And I hope this is a help to you during the week, just something that can kind of be an encouragement to you or a challenge, just kind of help you along in your faith. Meant to just kind of be a devotional, an online devotional, I guess. Hey, we're going to be talking today about going the distance. You know, all of us, as we live out our Christian faith, it gets difficult at times. It's hard to walk with God. It's hard to stay faithful. There's so many distractions in the world. There's so many things that want to pull us away or maybe cause us to stumble or even just, it gets hard. It's inconvenient sometimes living for Jesus. But I want to encourage you today to go the distance, to not give up, but to every day strive to press on in your faith. Even when it's hard, even when it's difficult. And I want to look at a passage out of the book of Hebrews as just a form of encouragement to us. Now, you got to understand, the book of Hebrews was written to a Jewish audience, many of which were facing persecution. Things were difficult. They had been Jews who had embraced Christ, which was not a popular thing in their day. And at their time, and in their families, and in their culture. And so there was a lot of persecution. Some of it, a persecution from, I guess, the authorities, maybe jail or beatings. But a lot of it was just a lot of pressure from family, disowning them, wanting nothing to do with them, because they had become Christians. And some of them were kind of wearing down and wearing out, and they were having a hard time going the distance. They were having a hard time pressing on. And so the author of Hebrews writes to encourage them to not give up. And it's in the middle of this book, or of this letter, in Hebrews chapter 12, we read this awesome passage because I think it's a great remembrance for us or a great challenge for us to go the distance. He says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart." See, the author said, don't give up. Go the distance. It's worth it. And I think there's a few things here that he says that are worth remembering. I want to just look at it this way. I think he encourages us as we face difficulties and we think about giving up to take 3 looks. 3 looks. First, he asks us to look back. Now, in verse 1 it says, it uses the word therefore. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. The word therefore always points us back to something that was said earlier. And in this case, it was said in chapter 11. And if you've ever studied the book of Hebrews, chapter 11 is a great chapter where it talks about not all of, but several of the great men and women of faith all through the Bible. Some call this like the Hall of Faith, or like the Hall of Fame for Christian people of faith, because it talks about people like Abraham and Noah and Isaac, and it goes on through. There's several people that are talked about here, and it talks about their faith in God, that they didn't give up. And that word therefore refers us back to that chapter. And basically what he's saying is, in light of what you just saw me write about Abraham and Noah and all their great faith, those people are bearing witness to you and I that God is faithful, that God will take care of us. He will help us get through. And so sometimes when we're facing difficulties, we need to look back and see that there are people that have gone before us, that have faced difficult things, that have lived their faith, but they still clung to their faith in God, even though it was hard. That's an encouragement for us, that as we just live out our life, look back for inspiration. Look back to those biblical characters who were just normal individuals like you and me, that struggled but yet clung to their faith. Hey, we're going to take a break, look at our random fact of the week, and then we'll be back in just a minute to wrap this up. Hey, welcome to the random fact of the week. Did you know that the average human has 6 pounds of skin? Bet you didn't know that. Hey, welcome back. We've been talking about going the distance and not giving up in our faith. And sometimes we get tempted to do. Sometimes it just seems like it might be easier to just throw in the towel and say, this living for Jesus thing, it's hard, it's too tough. But we're here to encourage you today. Don't give up. Go the distance. And we talked about our first point here was that we need to look back for inspiration. We need to look back to people who have gone before us and were faithful to God, and they continued to live for God even when it was difficult. Well, I think the second thing here in this passage, we look back, but we should also look within. We look back to be inspired by those who went before us. We look within to examine our heart and to see if there's things in our life that are knocking us down, are causing our discouragement, are making things difficult. He says, in verse 1, he says, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles us. See, he's saying we got to look inside and determine, are there things that we need to let go of? Are there sins that are continuing to knock us down? We need to run the race with perseverance, and we need to get rid of that stuff. You know, I've told this story before, but back in ancient days when they would have, like the Olympic Games and stuff, the runners often would run naked. And the reason was they didn't want anything on their body slowing them down. And I think the author here uses that imagery, that we're running a race, and we need to get rid of everything that would slow us down in the race. And that would be sin or any other kind of issues that might be going on inside of us. We need to do an examination. Well, lastly, we've looked back, we've looked in, but we need to look up. We need to look forward. We need to fix our eyes on Jesus. And the author says in verse 2, let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. He is the one that we need to focus on. He's the one that we need to lock onto. Jesus is the one that's going to strengthen us and help us in that. He is our encourager. He is our power and our strength. And so we need to look at Him as we run this race. See, often our eyes get fixed on our problems and our struggles and our difficulties. And, oh wow, we can't do this. And we give up. I'm reminded, every time I read that passage, I'm reminded of Peter, who was in the boat when Jesus was walking on the water, and Jesus came to the boat. And all the disciples were kind of freaked out. But it was Peter who was willing to get out of the boat. And Peter, I just picture him, his eyes were locked on Jesus. And he steps out of the boat and he begins to walk and he begins to take some steps and his eyes are fixed on Jesus. But all of a sudden, he maybe feels the water lapping up on his legs or he feels the wind, and all of a sudden his eyes change from fixed on Jesus to his circumstances. And he thinks, oh my goodness, I'm walking on, and what happens? He sinks. Because he got his eyes off of Jesus and onto his circumstances. And so I think these are some really encouraging words for us. If you're going through a difficulty, if you're finding it hard to go the distance in your faith, I want to encourage you. Don't give up. Look to the past. Look into God's Word and see men and women who have gone through things that were difficult and hard, but they remained faithful. Look within. Maybe some of your struggle is things you need to let go of and get rid of. And keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. He will help you. He is the author of our faith. He is the finisher of our faith. He will empower us and strengthen us to walk with Him. I hope you have a great week. We'll see you Wednesday night at youth group. Just looking forward to getting together again, and we'll talk to you then.
It's always more fun to share with everyone.